Okay, so now we're about ready to start Chapter 2 of our financial statement analysis project. So the first thing you want to do is open up your Excel sheet, and you can see mine right here. And we're going to go right next to Chapter 1 to the plus sign and create a new sheet. So I click on the plus sign. Notice I have now sheet 1. I need to drag that sheet behind my Chapter 1. I want to double click and I'm going to name it Chapter 2, press enter, and I now have a new tab, Chapter 2. So now I want to go get the questions that I need to answer for Chapter 2. So go on to the course website, unless you have it saved someplace else. You're going to go down to the Financial Statement Analysis Project and up to the top where the project is. And you can see that we have the project right here. I'm going to go ahead and download it. Again, if you've already done this, you can just open the document. So now I have the document open, and I'm going to go down to Chapter 2. So the first question on Chapter 2, I'm going to just copy and paste it. That way I don't have to retype it. Go back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to go down just a couple of rows and paste it. And again, remember, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And I'm not going to worry about, actually, I don't want this. I'm going to do that. I think what I'm going to do is just leave this. I'm going to cut and paste this in here. And then I'm going to wrap the text. I'm going to go back here and I can put in a 1. So it really just depends on how it pastes for you. But basically, you're going to want the question showing on your first column. So the question says, for the most recent year, show the company's cash flow from operating activities, cash flow from investing activities, and cash flow from financing activities. So remember, we are going to name these cells and bring them over with their names. But I know that I'm going to want 3 different numbers. I'm going to want cash flow from operating activities, cash flow from financing activities, and cash flow from investing activities. Now, again, just to make this look neat, I'm going to justify that so that they're all right there. I'm going to figure out what my most recent year. Now, we have to know that we're going to get this from what? The statement of cash flows. So remember, your statements are all lined up right here. So what you just need to do is go through and find your statement of cash flows. Here's my statement of cash flows. I am looking for cash flows from operating. So that happens to be on my line 18. You'll have to find yours. It'll say net cash provided by operating. My latest year is January 2nd, 2021. So I'm going to go to that cell and I'm going to go up here in the name box and I'm going to put operating. I'm going to use my camel letters again. Remember, I can't use spaces. I could use underscores, but I can't use spaces. And also remember that I cannot put numbers first. So I just put operating cash flows 2021, and I have to hit the enter key. Then I'm going to look for operating investing. So here is my net cash used in investing. Again, you'll have to find yours. So this is the cell, and I want to name it again. So I go up to the name box, and I'm going to use my camel letters, Cash Flows, Investing, 2021, and let it stick. And then I'm going to go down and find my net cash used in financing. It's on that row. So I'm going to click on this cell, go up to my name box, cash flow, financing, 2021. Okay, so now that I've named all of mine, I'm going to go back to my chapter 2. And right here, I'm going to put 2021 because that's the year. And I'm going to just, in order to bring up that name, all I have to do is press the equal sign and start typing. And I know I started with cash flows. So notice I have cash flows. Oh, see what I did? I did this different, but that's okay. It came up anyway. So instead of doing cash flows operating, I did operating cash flows. That's okay. It's very easily, I can tell what I did. So I'm going to just double click on that. And once I do that, I press enter, and look, here comes the number right there. It's perfect. And you can see up here that that's the number I wanted, the operating cash flows for 2021. Financing activities, again, I just put the equal sign. Now I know I did cash flow this time, financing. Here's my financing. Double click, press enter, and there's the number for my financing. Investing, we do the same thing. Equal, start typing. Here's my cash flow investing. Double click, press enter, and now I have my 3 cash flows. Now I would like to make these look a little better, so I'm going to go ahead and format them comma style. I'm not going to put dollar signs in front of each of them, but comma style will allow me to see them better. I don't need any cents. And right there, now I know that my cash flows from operating activities, $969,688. But remember, this is probably in thousands. I can go back to my statement of cash flows, and it says up here in thousands. So we'd actually have 3 zeros behind that. So really 969 million. And then cash flows from financing. So you can see that this company, Advanced Auto Parts, actually used cash flows. They're paying down their debt. And they also, though, are still investing. So that's showing a good sign of maturity from this company. They have very good operating cash flow. They're paying down debt, which makes them less leveraged. And they are still investing because that is a negative cash flow. Okay, let's go see our next question. So our next question asks, what are the 2 largest outflows of cash? So I'm going to copy that question over and put it right under this question. Paste. I don't know why I keep coming up with this 2, but I'm just going to cut that and paste it over here where I really want it. And then I'll just go up here and put a 2. So what are my 2 largest outflows? Well, I have 2 outflows, and those happen to be the 2 largest. Okay, so again, I can do cash flow from financing. Activities and cash flow from investing activities. And basically, all I really have to do is say equal to this cell, right? Or I could do equal, which would probably be better, cash flow from financing. and equal to cash flow from investing. And again, I have my two numbers. I want to go ahead and do this as a comma, take away my 2 cents. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save my spreadsheet. I like to do that because I don't want to lose anything. So now we're done with the second question. Let's go to the third question. And now let's go to my third question. So I'm going to copy. And again, I'm probably going to have that same issue. Okay, why didn't it copy? Let's see. Copy. Oh, there we go. And paste. Again, I have the same issue. That's okay. I'm just going to cut it and paste it over. Now this one goes long, right? So what do I have to do? I have to wrap it so that it comes back around. I'm going to go over here, put the 3. Okay, now this question is asking me about these numbers. Has the company been expanding over the past 3 years? And if so, how did they finance it? So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, yes, the company is expanding because they had negative cash flows for investing activities. Now, obviously, this doesn't look very good, so I'm going to bring this out a bit because it's not going to matter here. I'm just going to bring that out a little bit, and then that allows me to wrap this answer here. And then the next question says, if so, how did they finance the expansion? Well, what they're saying is, where were they positive? They're paying off their debt, right? Because it's negative. So the way that they're financing their expansion is through their operations, which is actually a very healthy thing. So right here, I'm going to say they are financing the expansion with operating cash flow. So now I'm going to wrap that text. Okay, so I've answered both of the questions in here. And again, let's say that your company has negative operating activities. Well, they've got to be getting cash from someplace. Or perhaps they're not investing. Maybe their investing activities are positive. If they are, that means they're selling something. So that means this question would be no. If this question's no, you don't have a second part. So what you're looking for is, are your investing activities, are they positive or negative? If they're negative, that means they're investing. If they're positive, that means they're selling things. So if your investing is negative, you've got to figure out which of these cash flows are financing it. Is it the financing activities? If in that case, this would be positive. And what you can do is see, are they taking on more debt? So let's go back to my statement of cash flows. So if I'm looking at financing activities, you can see all of these for me, most of them are negative. Ultimately, it's a negative, right? They have done all kinds of different things, both positive and negative. If you had a positive number here, then that means you either borrowed or you issued common stock. They have done both. So it's kind of interesting. They have a lot of different things they have done. They have basically paid off some notes, but then they borrowed under credit, but then they paid a credit. So that basically wipes that out. They had some proceeds from some senior unsecured notes. They paid dividends. They did issue a little common stock, but look, they purchased back a lot of their common stock. So the only place that this investing, which is purchases of property and equipment, is the vast majority of it. You can see that number's really big. The only way that they paid for that was through operations. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question, number 4, I'm going to copy it. Go over here. We're already learning a lot about our company. We're going to paste. Again, I'm having this trouble with my numbers. That's okay. I'm just going to cut and paste over here. And then put the number 4 in here. And I'm also going to click on this so that I can wrap the text. Okay. So which accounts on the balance sheet or accrual accounts show each account and the balance for the latest year for each of them? Okay, so we're looking for accounts that are accrual accounts. So the ones that we have really paid attention to in Chapter 2 are what? Accounts receivable, accounts payable, salaries payable. But remember, in class, I told you that accrued expenses and accrued liabilities mean the same thing. So let's go on to our balance sheet and see if we can find the accrual accounts. I'm going to go back to my balance sheet. And I'm going to start up here. Cash is not accrual. Here I have some receivables. That's an accrual account, right? Because I have not received cash for services that I have rendered. So I'm going to go ahead and copy over receivables. So I'm going to do a copy, just because this is easier than trying to remember it. Go back to my Chapter 2. And right here, I'm going to click paste. I'm going to right justify it. I'm going to go back to my balance sheet. Inventory is not an accrual. Other current assets. I don't really know. There may be some accrual in there, but I'm not going to worry about it. If it doesn't say accrual, I'm not going to worry. So that's all of my assets. Now remember, accrued liabilities and assets are basically going to be current. So I'm not going to look down here at any of these assets. Liabilities, accounts payable is accrued, and accrued expenses are accrued. So I'm going to copy these two, and I'm going to go over here to Chapter 2, and I'm going to click paste, and I'm going to right justify. Now remember, I've got to go name these. Okay, we want the latest year. It's 2021. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to name each of these. I'm going to go back to my balance sheet. And right here where it says receivables, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say receivables 2021. Enter. I'm going to go down to my accounts payable. Accounts payable, I'm going to name it 2021. Enter. And I'm going to go down to my accrued expenses, ACCRUED. Now please do not shortcut these names. Make sure you use the whole name. It doesn't do any good on the other sheet to go, what is that number, when you have said AE 2021. Well, what does AE mean? Or AP. So it's really important that you go ahead and use the entire name. You only have to type it once. After that, it'll pop up and you can select it. So let's go back to my Chapter 2 sheet. And now I'm going to pull those numbers up. So I'm going to start typing equal RE, and there it is. Remember, it's going to look, it's not going to be a function, it's going to be a name. So you're going to see the little worksheet next to it. Double click, press enter. There's my number. Same for accounts payable, equal. I'm going to start typing. And as I do, accounts payable, pops up, double click, enter, equal, start typing, accrued expenses, double click, press enter. So now I've got all my numbers. I'm going to go ahead and format them, get rid of my decimals, and here are my accounts, my accrual accounts, and here are my balances. All right, let's go look at the next question. Number 5. Go ahead and copy it over. Skip 2 lines, just make it a little neater. Again, I have this issue, but that's okay. It's just 2 clicks to fix it. Word wrap it. All right. Calculate the change in net income and cash flow from operating activities for the last 2 years. All right. So I'm going to put net income. Let's see. How would I like to do this? I'm trying to decide. Do I want years? I want them side by side. Yeah, so I think this is how I'll do it. Net income and cash flows from operating activities. And then I'll put the years here, 2021 and 2020. Now, since I've had some time delay between the time that I've done this, I know I just did cash flows for 2021. So I can go ahead and put in that number by just looking it up. Cash flows operating. I cannot remember if I did net income. Well, it's easy to find out. I did net income. Now, I did 2020 and 2019. That is 2021. The reason is because, remember, I have this very funky year end. So I may even go back in and change my name for that. But right now I'm going to just double click. So I had my net income in here already, which is great. So I can just use what I have. That's one of the beauties of naming these. Once you name them, you can use them any place. Now, I do know, though, that I did not name my cash flows from operating activities for the prior year. So I'm going to go back to my statement of cash flows. I'm going to find my net cash from my operating activities, which is here. And the prior year, see, again, it's 2019. It's very strange my year ends because it crossed over another year. So it looks like there's 2 years, but there's really only 1 year between here. So I'm going to click here and click up here, and I'm gonna do it the same that I did it the last time, even though I wish I would have done all cash flows operating. And I can change that, and I'll show you how to change that in just 1 minute. All right, so C18, I'm going to go to operating cash flows 2019 and press enter. Now I'm going to go back to my chapter 2. I'm going to put 2019 up here because it's actually correct, even though it looks very strange. I'm going to start typing, and there's my operating cash flows, and I'm going to press enter. All right. So now I've got my net income and my cash flows from operating. I'm going to go ahead and format, take out my cents. All right. So now, what do I want to know? I want to know the difference between this year and last year and this year and last year. Now, I want to know if it went up or down. So I want to, if it went down, then I want a negative number. If it went up, I want a positive number. So I'm going to take this minus this, the first year minus the prior year, the current year minus the prior year, and that'll tell me whether it went up or down. So I'm going to go equal, point to that cell, minus point to this cell and press enter. So, and you can look at it and see my net income went up $6,125,000 because remember I have 3 years. So I'm going to put difference right here. Now I'll make this column a little bit bigger. Now notice, once I formatted these, this automatically formats. It takes on the format. The formula will take on the format of the other numbers. So if you format these, then this will automatically format. Now, I could do the same thing here. I could do equal this minus this, and I'm just pointing. Or I can just copy this cell because it's relative. So in this case, look at this formula. They're taking B26 minus C26. When I copy this down, it's going to still use the same columns because I'm in the same column. But because I'm copying it to the next row, it's going to change this 26 to 27. Both these 26s. So I go to copy and then paste. And notice that now it says B27 minus C27. This is really helpful if you have to copy down a formula for many, many rows, because otherwise you don't want to be doing equal minus for 10 or 12 rows. Okay, so if I want to get rid of my Hollywood lights, those little blinky lights that you just saw, I just click escape. So notice now, what does the question say? Calculate the change in net income and cash flow from operating activities for the last 2 years. I've done that. They've both increased. Which one changed the most? Well, isn't that obvious? Right here, we can tell that operating activities changed the most. So right here, I'm going to put cash flows from operating activities changed the most. And then I'm just going to word wrap it so it looks nice. And I'm done with that question. All right, let's go grab the next question. Number 6. Copy. Come over, skip a couple of lines. Paste. Paste, word wrap. All right, so this question says calculate the change in net income and retained earnings for the last 2 years. Calculate the percentage change. All right, so great. All I have to do for the net income one, I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this part because I've already done that. I'm going to just hit copy, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to hit paste. And there's my net income and the difference. Notice it still refers to my net income cell. It didn't change it, okay? Because that's what we call an absolute reference. So I can copy and paste that reference anywhere on the spreadsheet and it will always refer back to that cell that I named. All right, get rid of the Hollywood lights that were up here, hit escape. Now, the next thing it says for retained earnings. So I'm going to click right here and I'm going to do retained earnings. Let me justify that so it looks nice. And I have no idea. Again, I don't remember if I did retained earnings. I'm just going to go equal and start typing. And I did not. There's no formula for retained earnings or no named cell. So where do I get my retained earnings? My retained earnings is on my balance sheet. So I'm going to go back to my balance sheet. And under my stockholders' equity section, I'm going to look for my retained earnings. And there they are right there. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to name this cell retained earnings in the year. For your year may be different. Press enter. And then I'm going to name this cell with the year. And again, my years are getting very messed up because of the issue with the year end. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Now, I'm just going to start typing. And there it is. That's 2021. Double click. And then I'm going to do equal retained earnings 2019. Now, these are not formatted because they're not formatted in the original cell that we just did. But that's okay. We can format them here. Again, we're going to do the comma, take away the cents. And now again, we can just copy this cell down because it says B36, C36. When we copy it, it's going to say B37, C37. Now, I can do a copy paste like that. Or there's another way you can do it in Excel. You have to be really careful because you want to make sure you're doing what you want to do. If you come down to this little green box and you double click, it will copy down one row. Just double check and make sure you didn't move it. You copied it. Okay, so we don't want the absolute difference. We want the percentage difference. So we're going to go here and type percent difference. I'm going to make this a little wider, but then I can just wrap that. Okay. Now, in order to get the difference, we want to take what? The difference divided by the first year, right? So we're going to go equal divided by, because we want to know the percent that it changed. Now that's a little bit hard to read, so let's go up and formulate it as a percent, and we'll just round to the nearest decimal. And the way I do that is instead of taking away my decimals, I'm going to increase my decimal by 1. Now I can copy this down. And we can see that net income increased by 1.3%, but my retained earnings increased by 11.2%. All right. So I'm going to write right here. It says calculate the percent change. Which one increased or decreased the most? So I'm going to put retained earnings increased by 11.2, whereas can't spell, whereas net income only increased by 1.3%. Retained earnings increased the most. And now again, I'm going to word wrap that. So that I have my answer there. Oh, I forgot to number my question. I think this is number 6. I'll go over here and put a 6. Okay. Onward and upward to the next question. Let's go back to our questions. Only a couple more. I'm going to copy. Go back here. Paste. Move this over. Put in my number 7. Wrap text. All right. So the next question is saying for each year, calculate the net income as a percentage of revenues. Has the percentage increased or decreased? All right. So what am I going to need? I'm going to need net income and revenues. And then I'm going to take the percentage and then look at the percentage from each year. So let me do net income here. revenues here. And I'm going to write justify. Actually, I think I'm going to delete. I don't want that too low. Okay, I'm going to write justify these. And I'm going to put 2021 and 2019. Again, I know that looks crazy. And my net income for 2021, if I start typing, look, and I did 2020. Just try to ignore my years. I'm going to double click right there and see how wonderful that is. I already have those numbers. I already have that name once I've named it, and put 2019 there. Now my revenues, did I do my revenues? Let's see. I did not. Okay, so notice I have no revenues right there. So where do I find my revenues? I'm going to find them on my income statement. So I'm going to go look for my income statement. My income statement is called Consolidated Statements of Operations. All right. So my revenues up here are called net sales. Yours may be called revenues. It could be called different things, but it's typically going to be the top row or the top couple of rows. And I want these two to be named. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say equals revenues 2021. Sorry, I put the equal sign over there. I don't want the equal sign over there. I just want revenues 2021 and revenues 2019. Press the enter. Okay, now that I've got those named, I'm going to go back to chapter 2 and go here and start typing. And you'll see my revenues for that year. And then equal revenues for this year. Now, I want the net income as a percentage of revenues. So I'm going to take net income divided by revenues, and that will tell me what percentage of net income is of revenues. And we know it's going to be less than 100%, right? Because this is a smaller number. So let's go ahead and format this first so we can read it a little bit better. Easier to read with commas. And we're going to go equal to this number divided by this number. 4% about. Again, it's a little hard to read. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it into a percentage, but I want to have at least one decimal and see what happens. When I turned it into one decimal, it actually is a little bit below 5%. It's 4.9. Typically, when we're going to do percentages, we're going to do them with rounding to the nearest decimal. Now I'm just going to copy this over to here. Remember, because it's going to be relative. Instead of dividing this by this, it's going to divide this by this. I'm going to paste. And you can notice it went a little bit up, 5%. But this is the earlier year. So actually it went down, right? The percentage has decreased. So I'm going to go ahead, escape to get rid of those Hollywood lights. And I'm going to put the percentage. And you know what? Before I do that, I really need to show that I did that. So let me do difference here. And then I'm going to say equal this minus this. And that means it went down, right? I have a negative here. So now I'm going to say the percentage of net income to revenues has decreased by 0.1%. Okay, I'm going to word wrap that. And I've answered that question. Not bad. I mean, it's decreased, but not by much. Obviously, if it decreased by 10, 15, 20%, that might be an issue. What that means is for their revenues, they are not making as much profit. All right, let's go to the next question. We're almost there. Okay, copy. And paste. Okay, so we talked in class about how financial statements have to follow generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. So all of these publicly held companies have to be audited by auditors to make sure that they're following the rules. So what we're going to do is we're going to go find the audit statement. Every single financial report has an audit statement. Now, might be a little bit more difficult to find, but it's typically either right before the financial statements or right after the financial statements. And you'll have to go back to those original PDFs that I had you download. So I'm going to get out. I'm going to just minimize my sheet here. And I'm going to look for my advanced auto parts. Here is my PDF of my latest year. And I want to find my financial statements because I know it's going to be right before or right after. And if I was smart, I would have written down what the page number my financial statements are on. But I didn't. But I know it's somewhere around page 29. It's going to be after page 29. That's item 8. Because I'm already on page 9. So it's probably on around 38. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put 37 just so I don't miss it. And I'm just going to go through here until I see my financial statements. Now that says item 15, exhibits. There it is. Okay, so you can see here's my financial statements, my balance sheet, operations, all of that. So if I go here, mine's at the beginning, yours may be at the end. It should say Report of Independent Registered Public Accounting Firm, and it will say there is an opinion on the financial statements. Right? So notice we have audited the accompanied consolidated balance sheets and subsidiaries, and it talks blah, 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 blah. In our opinion, so I'll just highlight this if I figure out how to do that. I don't know if I have a highlighter on here. I don't think I do, but it would be right here. Let's see if I just highlight it. In our opinion. Right, so it's right here. In our opinion. La la la. In our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the company. So that's basically saying that Advanced Auto Parts followed all the rules that they were supposed to follow for these financial statements. Obviously, this report's a little bit long, and then you just keep going down the report until what? You find who did it. Okay? At that point, what I want you to do is take a picture of that part. So I'm going to get my snippet tool. If you're on a Mac instead of a PC, you have the key sequence that I can never remember. I always have to look up. So go here. I'm going to go new. And then I'm just going to do this. Whoops, right there. And you can see that the audit firm is Deloitte and Touche. I'm going to save this. I'm just going to save it as a picture auditor on my desktop. I'm going to note the page that it's on. But make sure you do the PDF page number, not the actual filing number. So it's on the PDF page number 44. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet. And on here, I'm going to say Deloitte and Touche. That's the name of the firm. And then I need to have what? Reference. Now, why have I not needed a reference before? Because all of this has come right from the financial statements that are in the Excel sheet. But if you have to answer a question that comes from someplace else, you need your reference. So I'm going to go down, it's an F. So right here, I'm going to put page 44 of the 10K PDF. And right here, I'm going to show my evidence. So I'm going to insert a picture. It's from this device. So I'm going to browse for it. It's on my desktop, so I'm going to just go get it. And it's under Auditor. I'm going to double click. And there it goes. Now, I can move this like right here so that it's not blocking my reference. Okay? And you can see they have been the company's auditor since 2002. So I'm going to save this. And go down, and I think this is going to be my last question for this chapter. So let me go back to the questions. Okay, record your stock price on your stock sheet and on the group sheet. Okay, so every chapter, we're going to go back to our stock sheet. When you complete the chapter, it doesn't matter what date it is, it's okay. You're going to put right here date and price. So I am completing this on 2/12, but that's not a date for stock. So I'm going to use the closing price of the most recent day that it traded. Now you're going to need your stock symbol number right here. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to go over to where? To Yahoo Finance /finance. So now you're going to, once you get there, you're going to search for your stock symbol. So mine's AAP. I'm going to look for the previous close because I'm on a Saturday. The previous close is going to be right here. So it's 2/22/73. So go back to my sheet. And I'm at 2/22/73. All right, so that's where you're going to record it. Every chapter, you're just going to have a date and a stock price. All right, now, there's one other place you need to record it. You need to go back to the course page. Go to the home page. Go down to Financial Statement Analysis Project. Click on it. And we're going to keep everybody's prices in a spreadsheet. So here's the spreadsheet. And you're going to notice there's nothing on it because people have not started this chapter yet. You're going to click on it. You're going to load it. Okay, the first time you get on the spreadsheet page, you're going to have to put in your last name and your first name. And your company, after this, you won't have to fill this part in. Make that a little bigger. Your stock exchange, which for me is NYSE. Your stock symbol. Now, the Chapter 1 stock price, we didn't look up. I forgot. So, I think what I'm going to do, let me see if I have it on my spreadsheet. I think it would be the last price when I pulled it up. So I would say $228.22. If you can remember when you did it, if not, maybe go back a week or two or whenever you think you did it and pull the price closest to what you can. And now it's 222.73. So actually my stock price has dropped. Most people's have over the past few weeks. All right, so I'm going to do that, and it will save automatically. And I'm going back to my spreadsheet. I'm going to save, and I am done with Chapter 2.